And we were talking about Chinese martial art. That's what this thing's about, Chinese martial art. And I did have a question regarding because we talked about like different scenarios and then we ended up talking about how Chinese martial art definitely in the modern era is seen as weak. I've been training with you for probably a little over 2 years now, and the amount of like Chinese martial arts had gone up, at least in like YouTube and Instagram, stuff like that. But yet it seems like how do you know if someone has it? Right? Like, we look at like what do you look at when you are looking for a teacher? Perfect examples. Like when you're looking for a teacher, how do you know like they're I don't want to say good because that's subjective, right? Um, you could probably say good, but like, how do you know like they'll be able to teach you the stuff, or do you have to first see like what are you looking for in an art? Are you doing it for exercise, social, self-defense, competition, and then find a teacher? Like, can you go over like kind of your journey and what made you what made you look for teachers, and then how do you kind of see like who's good, who's not that you want to pursue? I know it's a lot, just I just threw at you.
No, it's okay. That's a good question. Um, I think partially depends on, your own skill and where you're at. Like if
Mm,
you're a complete beginner, kind of like what we talked about last time, it's hard to know. It's difficult to know when someone is good because you don't really know what you're looking for, right? So I find that a lot of people, even people that have been doing it for, few years, like Chinese martial arts is sort of weird enough that you could end up doing something for a really long time and think what you're doing is good, but have no actual clue. So
right.
it's kind of hard to say. Right? I was really lucky because when I met my first teacher, Darrel, he right off the bat showed me he was a Tai Chi guy, and he showed me really, really practical stuff like right away. I was 16. No, when I met him, I was like only 13. I used to watch him like do his practice. I was like pretty fascinated by it. And at some point, he would spar with like people from a bunch of different styles, and I watch him just wrap them all up. And it was pretty clear to me. I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, you've got this black belt, this karate black belt coming at him. I think this guy was like fairly advanced, like maybe sixth degree black belt,
Hmm.
and he went at him, and Darrel just wrapped him up. I don't even know how he did it. Still don't really know how he did it. And ended up, it was very clear that he could control the guy without much effort.
Mm,
And that, just watching that kind of gave me a sense of, oh, okay, maybe this is kind of what I'm looking for, right? Or
yeah.
at least what I'm looking for when it comes to like a skill, right? And Darrel had this thing that he would say where he didn't like to fight people, right? But he had a thing where he just wanted to um, kind of, I don't know how to say it in a way that doesn't sound terrible, but he would prefer to humiliate rather than to hurt.
Mm,
So when he'd do these sorts of bouts with people, he'd just wrap them up and kind of. He was a really funny guy, right? Wrap them up and almost like sit on them. Sometimes I still don't really know exactly what he was doing, um, but it's pretty clear, right? When you watch guys that you know have skill and they're moving at him, and he was able to just kind of take care of them pretty quickly.
mm,
Um, you know, and at that point, I didn't know anything. I wasn't really I didn't do any training yet. So I guess that kind of set things up.
right. And that's interesting. Now, when you talk about Darrel, and you said that you've seen his forms and stuff, like when I hear you tell about the karate guy, 6 degree black belt, it's a significator of their degree of skill, right? Like, you got BJJ, the same belt system and stuff like that. Like that's how you give your skill. While you say Darrel was a Tai Chi guy, but before even like I got into martial art, like I was like, oh, Tai Chi, like that's for old people. Like Tai Chi is not a art that can help defend myself. I need to learn boxing. I need to learn karate. I need to learn taekwondo. Any of these is belt systems to show that I'm good, right? And it seems from what I'm hearing, and you can clarify this, like it's not like when people online now, especially Wing Chun, because we're Wing Chun, we, we see a lot of this. They get in their stances, or they're very much stuck in the way of I have to handle this way, doing this like this perfect time, or I have to like do what Donnie Yen did and Ip Man, like with Darrel, it seems like at least from what you're telling me, it's like it was just it was in his body and he was able to move that way. It wasn't like he was doing all these like slow, like you see on like videos and stuff, like this slow Tai Chi or like plow hands and stuff. And he's like, oh, you could see the movement. It was more just like it's ingrained in him and he was able to tweak it enough where he could just put his hand out and it was like, rise, turn over, fall, right? Like, because it seems like a lot of people want to see that nowadays. It's like, how do you know it's Chinese martial art? How do you know it's not karate if the guy's not in his karate stance? How do you know it's not Wing Chun if the guy's like in his Wing Chun stance? Like, because you said practical. A lot of people see practical, it means it has to have a form, like a stance, like, which doesn't, it's like a counterintuitive, right? It's like, how would I know you're doing Tai Chi if you're not doing Tai Chi? You know?
Well, yeah, and I think he's the first guy to say his Tai Chi's very heavily modified.
Mm,
Um, I or maybe yeah, modified, but more kind of like shorter. Because he was very application focused. I mean, I don't want to paint him in the wrong light or anything. I mean, it was um, a whole study for him. Um, but he had that focus, and that was very interesting for me because I had a very unique uh, upbringing in
hmm
regards to like my journey in Chinese martial arts because from right off the bat, I'm seeing this stuff. I would say it's fairly advanced level stuff. I mean, for the first 5 years of my training, I was utterly clueless and I didn't
hmm
have any skill. And I think the reason for that is because I was learning very intermediate to advanced level stuff
Early on. Mm,
early on because most people are starting out with quote unquote external stuff like kicks and punches and kind of very hard styles, right?
hmm
And he would talk about that a lot. And he would basically say most guys that do hard styles for a long time end up doing the softer stuff later in their life. You know, one reason is as you age, you can't sustain. You know, it's not that any of those arts are bad whatsoever, but it's difficult to sustain. Um, a hard practice regimen and difficult to do some of those things that um, those arts require you to do for your body like as you get older. Um so for me it was like I didn't have any real background doing kicks and punches and stuff. I didn't really know anything. I didn't have a stance. I was like starting from scratch, right?
hmm
And so he was teaching me this like kind of soft yet also hard kind of Tai Chi stuff. And I never got the hang of it. you know
mm,
it was so difficult for me. in 5 years I couldn't even learn the 24 form.
Mm,
Like it took me. I trained more than 3 or 4 times a week, pretty seriously. I practiced on my own, and I just couldn't learn it because it was so. To me, it was so difficult.
mm,
You know, like what we were doing. Um, but just to kind of go back to your first question, how do you see, how do you recognize people's skill? Well, that for me, gave me an impression, right? Good or bad, right? So then
right.
as I would meet, new teachers, or like as I'm looking out for to find people to study with, I'm certainly not challenging them,
Mm,
but usually they, it being Chinese martial arts, they would, want to touch hands, or at least
mm,
if they wouldn't, then, you sort of see them touch hands with their students, or something. And you kind of, I think what I was looking for then compared to what I look at now, you know,
mm,
more than 15, 16 years later, is completely different.
mm,
Uh, but yeah, I mean, that, as we talked about last time, that touching hands element, and you sort of see, when I saw my Wing Chun Sifu, when he, I was very impressed with the way that he could trap guys. I never seen trapping before, right? Because I had only done Tai Chi, right? And Darrel showed me a little, very small amount of some other stuff, like some ninjutsu, uh, some bagua, uh, mostly that, right? But very very little, right? Um,
mm,
and I'd never really seen kind of hand trapping before. So I remember seeing, my Wing Chun teacher do this, and people getting kind of jerked off their feet, and this type of stuff. And I was very impressed with that. I thought that was really really cool, and I wanted to see if I could do that. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, and that kind of makes me think about like because now, at least for you, like you went out and looked for it. See, I had no when I started my journey, I had no idea I did karate when I was like a kid, like age 8 to 10 or whatever, like 3 years of karate. We did sports karate. So I got in tournaments and stuff like that and dabbled in boxing. But when it came to like, I was just actually looking for another karate place, but I was like, okay, not like the kitty, or I want something more like self-defense. And lo and behold, I Googled, like just Googling, Wing Chun school or no, self-defense schools. And I was like, I don't want to wrestle people. I want to do BJJ, nothing. And Wing Chun came up as a form of self-defense. I had no idea what it was. I just looked at it, went to the class, had no idea what I'm looking at, asked people if they sparred, and then kind of just went in that way. I had no idea. So above, it was so, higher level of what, like, I just knew the guy knew it was under Ip Man lineage. I heard about Ip Man, and I was like, okay, Ip Man must means this guy's good. I'm not saying he's not good or anything like that, but I had no idea what to look for when it came to like the amount of skill. Like I was looking at how much it costs and can I spar and does this stuff work? And we could probably go on the next like in the next one. I would love to talk about my experience of like falling out of love with Chinese martial arts.
I mean, you have a
But
really good story, a few really good stories. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we'll definitely be diving into that. But
Yeah.
yeah, like in that, like I had no idea what to look for. You just go for views or whatever, like YouTube stuff like that. That's what a lot of people do, and it's
Well,
more like, go ahead.
no, I mean, a lot of people, like you were saying about, oh, he learned from, or he's like from Ip Man lineage, so he must be good. And yeah, that is one of the ways that people check. is they look at lineage. Um, and I went through that too. Oh, my teacher's this much. Well, like from my Wing Chun teacher.
Emotional.
We're Ip Ching lineage.
Hmm.
So oh, that's Ip Man's son and you
Right.
know whatnot. Um, I mean, over the
I think
years, like
mine was like Ip Man's like nephew lineage. I think it was his nephew,
oh
cousin.
yeah, yeah,
No, I think it
nephew.
was nephew. Yeah,
Yeah,
nephew.
that sounds like Lo Man Gam. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, after some years, just in my experience, I don't really think lineage is a great way of checking whether the school is of a high quality. You know,
Hmm.
uh, I think there's a lot of good like schools out there with a good lineage that are basically not teaching particularly good stuff, and then there's also schools that are supposed to be in like a crappy lineage but they're doing better stuff, because I think it has
Mm.
a lot more to do with the process of how the teacher is approaching martial art, and also what are they teaching for. Like my Wing Chun teacher, I don't think he ever claimed he was teaching self defense, right?
Mm.
Because he wasn't. He was teaching Wing Chun, which is an art,
Mm.
And
I
so
see.
he's showing, the stuff he's showing is all based on, this is the art. And there was, in my school, we certainly didn't do any sparring. Um, you know, whatever you or I might think about the validity of that.
Right. We can go
He
on that in
did
another episode too.
he did encourage. Well, I don't want to say he encouraged, but he did not discourage his students from going out and sparring or testing their stuff with
Mm.
other people, which I did quite frequently. And
Mm.
you know, um, but it's like I would go back and I would ask him and be like, hey, I was doing this with this guy and then this happened, and he'd tell me some stuff, and sometimes it was helpful, sometimes it wasn't, and like no disrespect at all to him, but I don't think that what he was doing was, um, you know, like I don't think it was really designed to be practical. Just the way that school was run,
Mm.
a lot of stuff I had to figure out for myself, through a lot of trial and error and getting punched in the face and all that.
Right. Right. Exactly. And
Yeah,
and
but
I think that go ahead.
oh, that doesn't mean it was a bad school by no means. It's the basis of my background, but it's just like you asked your question earlier. Well, how do you define what is good? And you yourself as the person who's wanting to learn, what are your goals? And also, a lot of people don't really know what their goals are. Like when they come in to learn, they think they want to do something. They come in for self defense, but they stay for the community, or they come in for to feel more confident, but then they learn how to flow with a sword, and then they get really excited about flow. Same as like a dancer might or something.
Mm.
Or other people, they really want self-defense and they come in and they deeply study self-defense, you know and you know every school has probably got a different specialty,
Right.
you know so yeah.
And now that you talked about like knowing your goals and your goals even changing throughout, I know that we talked about it a lot off one, but we talked about a lot of like masters that in the past would claim that martial arts is not only designed to defend or to harm, but also designed to heal. And healing can be in various forms and fashion, but that makes me think of the changing of your what's it thought process. Like for me, for example, and I can speak for myself, I came to you wanting self-defense, you know, learning self-defense through our practices. And I learned how to hit. So I learned how to hit hard. I learned how to move. I learned how to like correct stuff in my body. Um, but I'm still here because I could have been like, okay, I know it. Like I don't need it anymore. But it's something like more. It was like the other principles of like understanding my body and moving and stuff like that. So it changed. Like, yeah, self-defense is there, but it was more like a part of it. Like it seemed like with at least for our stuff. And I can't speak to all Chinese martial arts. I've only trained in Wing Chun. Um, is that it encompasses everything. Like even Tai Chi, like is seen as this like, oh, this healing art, like, like grandmas and grandpas are like doing it in the park. But it also can be used for self-defense. It also can be used for meditation or other forms of stuff. Like it's all encompassing and there's like it's like all in one. Like very Chinese martial arts are like that where you go in, you're like, okay, I'm gonna defend myself, and then you come out knowing yourself more, knowing your body more.
Yeah.
While at least in my experience with boxing or sports fighting, it was like you go in, you go in, you're learning the art, and it's going to take a long time for you to get to the part of like self-reflection or those other pieces that you learn from self Chinese martial arts. But at the same time, it takes you longer to get to a certain part that, like, let's say for external boxing, for example, it's going to take you a lot longer, in my opinion, in Chinese martial art to be able to throw a punch like a boxer, move like a boxer if you're not putting in the amount of work as a boxer, because it's a whole bunch of things. You're doing the form over and over again. They just punch in the bag. Again, no offense to a boxer, but you're punching a bag, so you're learning those gross motors. While with our stuff, we're learning various things, understanding how to deal with the human body, while they're just trying to hit the human body. You know,
Yeah,
like
there's a lot to unpack there for sure.
yeah,
But what it reminded me of when you the first part of your question, which was asking about the healing aspect.
mm,
For me, my first introduction to that again was Darrel because he was a Taoist and he's the first person to teach me about Taoism and
mm,
the principles of yin and yang. And so he'd always say, a true master, he'd always say like he's not a master, right? Because a true master has equal ability to heal as he does to damage, right?
mm.
So when you that's what he said. So these guys they would be able to go and you'd really hurt somebody, but you could then also fix them up, right?
Right.
Which is really as a 15-year-old kid, you're like, what the hell is he talking about?
Shit, it's like a 30-year-old guy. I was like, what the
Yeah,
hell? Like, how's that possible?
yeah, right. So I didn't really know. So he said, true masters, they're doctors of Chinese medicine or some type of medicine, you know, which was very interesting framework to again grow up with. Looking for teachers in the future, and I have always found that the best teachers are the ones that have extensive sort of ability to heal, whether that be
Mm.
through bone setting. you know uh, for me, I tried to develop this by I became a personal trainer. I learned a lot about anatomy and I learned about how to fix things like muscular imbalances. There's postural issues, things like that. That's me trying to shore up the other side of the stuff, right? As I'm learning
Ah.
more combative stuff, I'm thinking, okay, well, I have to increase my, just because I kept that in mind of what he said. I have to keep this in mind of healing. Not that I would consider myself a healer by any stretch of the imagination, but um, you know, it is interesting because the more that I learned about that stuff, the more informed and the better practitioner that I became. Like, um, as you know, with you, well, actually, I won't share your story, but I'll just say, for me, as I was doing Wing Chun, um, the first couple of years that I was learning Wing Chun, um, my progress in some ways was very fast, and in other ways was very, very slow. Especially when I looked at people around me, I'm like, hey, how come this person can do this and that person can do the other thing, right? And I didn't know really. I practiced a lot. Like, let me tell you, I practiced like, you know, just hours, just
Mm,
just hundreds and thousands of hours, a lot, right? And I didn't really progress in certain ways. And I started seeing, as I started learning more about the body, I started seeing, oh, I've got this weird issue, like with my legs. Like, why are my knees like this? Why are my feet
mm,
like this? What's wrong with? How come when I look at that guy, he looks strong, but how come I look weak? What's
mm,
up with what's going on there? So it literally, Wing Chun was a way, that started a healing process for me, because I had to go into this exploration of my body and figure out some of the things that had, I had a kind of a challenging background growing up. I lived on the street. I lived through a lot of abuse. I got beat up a lot. I had a, for years I kind of walked around like this, so I had all this bad postural stuff that went all the way down, from top of my head to my feet. Everything, was kind of jacked up. And it took learning Wing Chun and actually going through the forms. The forms was like a almost a diagnostic tool,
mm,
what doing the forms and seeing, hey, why aren't I able to do this? Or why does my leg, why does my knee move inward when I do this, or whatever it is, and then, so it literally began this process of healing, which is kind
mm.
of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah, man. That's really cool, and it really just makes me think about how with like Chinese martial arts, or it's just so ever encompassing. Like unless like you are in the like pro level like MMA and boxing, where you have people like that are paid to like correct your shit, like Wing Chun or like any Chinese martial, like you learn how to correct your own body, or like your body starts to correct itself in some way. Either you noticing it or
Well,
just through your movement.
I wouldn't say you necessarily learn how to correct it, but at least if you're paying attention, you can get clued in on some of the issues.
Mm, okay. And I
Yeah.
like I would love to talk deeper on like I don't know if it's three or like the encompassing parts of Chinese martial arts versus external. Maybe we can go in that next episode and see. But yeah, like I like again, love this episode. I don't know how you want to end this. Because now we're gonna make this a weekly thing. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
like no,
You
this
said
was
it.
yeah, I said it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, this was good. No, I learned I got a lot out of this, and I don't know if I was going over all over the place or anything like that for you, but
No, no, that was it's fun. It's always nice chatting with you. It's always also nice to go down memory lane a little bit.
yeah.
And I
I would
rarely get
love
a
to
chance.
hear more thoughts about Darrel. I feel like a lot of the stuff kind of because I never heard about the healing aspect from
Yeah.
Darrel.
I mean, I rarely ever get a chance to share about him, and it's always nice. He passed away in 2016.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, I love being able to go back and reminisce, because he really gave me my base. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't even be a teacher. Um,
mm,
so Yeah.
Yeah, I would love. Yeah, you gotta tell that story too. Or like
Oh yeah,
how
for
that
sure.
transitions.
Yeah.
So,
But
but
yeah, I think you probably got to go, right? So
yeah, I have to run.
yeah, all
But
right.
yeah, no, can't wait to do this again. Yeah.